The grand chamber of the Galactic Council loomed before Dr. Elena Kairos like a crystalline cathedral, vast and unyielding. Pillars of iridescent material stretched to a domed ceiling that shimmered with shifting constellations. Pods housing representatives of 1,000 alien species hovered in concentric tiers, their occupants an impossible array of forms, feathered, scaled, translucent, metallic, and more. All eyes were fixed on her as she stepped into the arena at the center of it all, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. This was no ordinary chamber, it was a battlefield of ideals, and humanity's survival depended on her. "Delegate Kairos," boomed a voice, its tone cutting through the murmurs like a blade. Archminister Vraxith Dole, the presiding arbiter, stood in his elevated podium. His reptilian visage betrayed no emotion, but his eyes, golden and slit-pupilled, were cold with disdain. "You stand here as the representative of your kind, charged with justifying their place in this galaxy. Are you prepared to defend their existence?" Elena straightened her back. "I am." "Then we shall proceed." Vraxitha's gaze swept the chamber. "The motion before us, are humans too dangerous to exist?" Gasps rippled through the assembly, though many species remained eerily silent, their stillness more unnerving than any sound. Elena's jaw tightened. The accusation, though anticipated, felt like a slap. She took a steadying breath and met Vraxitha's gaze. "We are not here to debate humanity's flaws," she began, her voice steady but not without a tremor. "No species present can claim perfection. We are here to determine whether those flaws define us, or if our potential to grow and contribute to the galaxy outweighs them." A low growl of discontent rumbled from the Xarn Dominion's pod, where hulking, horned figures sat in judgment. From the Mirren Collective, a cluster of shimmering orbs pulsed faintly, a subtle signal of support. The chamber's mood was a volatile mix of curiosity, skepticism, and outright hostility. Vraxitha's voice cut through again. "Let us examine your species' actions. Display the evidence." The chamber dimmed, and a series of holographic projections materialized in the air. Scenes of human history played out in brutal detail. Mushroom clouds rising over scorched landscapes, war-torn cities reduced to rubble, oceans teeming with oil spills, and the haunting aftermath of Earth's first interstellar war. Gasps of horror and murmurs of disapproval filled the room. Elena forced herself to watch. To look away would be to concede guilt. "This," Vraxith said, his tone sharp, "is the legacy of your kind. Violence. Destruction. Greed. You expand recklessly, leaving ruin in your wake. Tell me, Delegate Kairos, what justification can you offer for such barbarism?" Elena stepped forward, her palms damp but her voice unwavering. "You've shown only half the picture, Archminister." She gestured, and another set of holograms flickered to life. They showed images of human resilience and ingenuity, the International Space Station orbiting Earth, built by nations once at war, scientists curing diseases that had plagued generations, disaster-stricken communities rebuilding together, and moments of sacrifice, firefighters rushing into burning buildings, soldiers laying down their lives to protect others, doctors treating the sick during pandemics. "We are flawed," Elena admitted, her voice rising with conviction. "But we learn. We adapt. We create. Humanity is more than its darkest moments. We are dreamers, builders, and explorers. And yes, we have made mistakes, but who among us here has not?" Her words hung in the air, met with a mix of thoughtful silence and skeptical whispers. From the shadowy Aerith delegation, a figure stepped forward, High Emissary Orthak, their body a swirling mass of bioluminescent tendrils. "An intriguing defense," they said, their voice a haunting harmony. "But words alone are insufficient. Tell us, Delegate, what safeguards would you propose to prevent humanity's destructive tendencies from endangering the galaxy further?" Elena paused. This was the crux of the debate. "We propose an oversight committee, comprised of representatives from the Council, to monitor humanity's interstellar activities. Transparency will be our guiding principle." A snort came from the Xarn Dominion's pod. General Razkar, a massive figure with molten red eyes, leaned forward. "And if you fail?" If your kind repeats its bloody history among the stars? Elena turned to face him. Then we will answer for our actions. Humanity does not seek to evade accountability. But I ask you, General, how many species here have histories free of war, conquest, or greed? Should we judge all by their past, or by their potential to change? The chamber erupted in murmurs, some nodding in agreement, others scoffing. Vraxith raised a clawed hand for silence. We shall hear from those who have suffered at humanity's hands, he declared. A Traskian survivor took the floor, their translucent, amphibious body quivering with emotion. They recounted the devastation of their homeworld during humanity's first interstellar conflict. Elena listened, her heart heavy with guilt and empathy. When the testimony concluded, she stepped forward. To the Trask people, I offer my deepest regrets. The war you endured was a tragedy, one humanity strives never to repeat. But let us not forget, it was misunderstanding and fear that led to that conflict. We must learn from our mistakes, not erase a species for making them. The chamber was silent. Elena could feel the weight of every gaze on her. As the session drew to a close, Vraxitha's voice rang out once more. You have once cycled to prove humanity's worth, Delegate Kairos. Bring us evidence that your species deserves its place among the stars, or prepare for the consequences. Elena's heart pounded as she left the chamber. The whispers of the council followed her, an oppressive reminder of the stakes. Back in the human embassy, she slumped into a chair, exhaustion seeping into her bones. You held your ground, said Commander Jace Morin, his gruff voice tinged with pride. For now, Elena replied. She glanced at the stars beyond the embassy window. They seemed distant and cold, a reminder of how precarious humanity's place in the galaxy had become. The trial had only just begun. The dimly lit briefing room in the human embassy felt suffocating. Dr. Elena Kairos sat at the head of a curved table, her hands clasped tightly together. Across from her were Commander Jace Morin, a grizzled military advisor, and Dr. Mirasolin, a cultural historian whose calm presence belied the storm raging in Elena's mind. Jace broke the silence. They're out for blood, Elena. Vraxith doesn't just want to win, he wants to bury us. Mira adjusted her glasses, her voice measured. We've survived worse, Commander. Let's focus on the allies we can count on, or make. Elena looked at them both, her exhaustion evident, but her resolve unwavering. We don't have the luxury of guessing who might help us. We need guarantees. Jace frowned. The Mirren Collective seems sympathetic, but sympathy doesn't win votes. Then we make it win votes, Elena replied. I'll meet their representative first. If we secure their support, it might sway others sitting on the fence. Hours later, Elena entered the Mirren Collective's chamber. It was an otherworldly space, bathed in soft, pulsating light. The Mirren representative floated at its center, a luminous, orb-like entity that shimmered with calming hues. Delegate Kairos, the orb said, its voice resonating in her mind rather than her ears. We admire your courage in the council. Few speak with such conviction. Conviction isn't enough, Elena admitted. I need your vote to prove that humanity deserves its place here. The orb dimmed slightly, a gesture Elena interpreted as hesitation. We value potential, but humanity's past casts long shadows. Our decision must consider the safety of all. Elena stepped closer. Your species knows what it means to be misunderstood. You once fought wars because others saw your peaceful nature as weakness. Humanity has the same capacity for transformation. Help us show the Council that our flaws are not our destiny. The orb brightened, its light shifting to warm gold. You speak well, Delegate. We will deliberate and make our stance known soon. It wasn't a promise, but it wasn't a rejection either. Elena left the chamber with a glimmer of hope. Her next stop was the chamber of the Therax Enclave. Unlike the ethereal elegance of the Mirren, the Therax were militaristic and pragmatic, their quarters stark and utilitarian. General Kaler, the Enclave's leader, stood waiting, his insectoid frame towering over Elena. You seek an alliance, human, Kaler said without preamble, his voice a low rasp. I seek understanding. Elena corrected. The Enclave values strength and strategy. Humanity offers both, not just as allies, but as equals. Kaler tilted his angular head. Strength without control is a liability. Your species has shown instability. We've made mistakes, but we've also learned. Our adaptability is our strength. Elena leaned forward, meeting Kaler's many-faceted gaze. Align with us, and you gain allies who won't falter under pressure. Reject us, and you risk pushing humanity into isolation, an outcome that serves no one. Kaler clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. I will consider your words. But know this, my decision is based on logic, not sentiment. Elena nodded, grateful for even a sliver of possibility. That evening, Elena returned to the embassy, only to find chaos waiting for her. Jace met her at the door, his expression grim. We've got trouble, he said. He led her to a monitor displaying footage of an alien news feed. The broadcast showed heavily edited clips of human military exercises, spliced with false reports of a secret weapon capable of planetary destruction. The source of the leaks was unclear, but the intent was obvious, to paint humanity as an imminent threat. Elena sank into a chair. This is a smear campaign. No question, Jace said. But without proof, we can't pin it on anyone. Mira entered, her face pale. And that's not all. There was an assassination attempt on one of the neutral delegates, High Emissary Orthak. No fatalities, but the attackers used weapons resembling human tech. Elena's blood ran cold. They're framing us. Of course they are, Jace growled. They want the council scared enough to vote against us without thinking twice. Elena pressed her fingers to her temples, willing herself to focus. We need to get ahead of this. Mira, start digging into the weapon allegations. Jace, secure our embassy. Make sure no one can link us to the assassination attempt. And you? Jace asked. I'm meeting Orthak, Elena said. If anyone can see through this mess, it's them. Orthak's private chamber was an enigma of shifting forms, much like the emissary themselves. Their bioluminescent tendrils swayed gently as Elena entered, casting faint shadows on the walls. You come amidst turmoil, delegate, Orthak said, their voice a blend of musical tones. Elena bowed slightly. I come seeking your wisdom. Orthak's glow intensified, a sign of curiosity. Speak. Elena recounted the allegations and the assassination attempt, her frustration evident. These are lies meant to destroy us. But lies told often enough can become truth in the eyes of the council. Orthak regarded her silently for a moment. The council fears power unbound by purpose. They see your kind as capable of greatness but lacking the guidance to wield it responsibly. Show them otherwise. How? Elena asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Orthak's tendrils stilled. You must shift the narrative. Highlight not just what humanity has done, but what it seeks to become. Fear cannot be fought with fear, it must be dispelled with understanding. Elena nodded slowly. I'll do whatever it takes. As she left Orthak's chamber, a plan began to form in her mind. But she knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger and betrayal. That night, as she stared out the embassy window at the swirling lights of Nexus Prime, Elena felt the weight of her mission more acutely than ever. The Council wasn't just debating humanity's fate, they were testing its resolve. Hope is a fragile thing, she whispered to herself. But it's all we've got. The trial of humanity was far from over, and the shadows were growing longer. The Council's chamber buzzed with tension the following morning. News of the assassination attempt on High Emissary Orthak had spread like wildfire, casting an ominous shadow over humanity's defense. As Elena Kairos walked into the central arena, she felt the weight of suspicion in every gaze. Even the Mirren Collective's previously warm glow had dimmed, their support no longer assured. She approached her podium, adjusting the microphone with trembling fingers. The holographic timer above the council chamber displayed their dwindling days until the final vote. The room fell silent as Archminister Vraxith Dole raised his clawed hand. The accusations against humanity are grave, he began, his reptilian voice echoing. Today, we demand clarity. Delegate Kairos, how do you respond to claims that human agents orchestrated the attack on High Emissary Orthak? Elena drew a breath, willing her voice to remain steady. The attack was not carried out by humans. We categorically deny these claims and stand ready to cooperate with an impartial investigation. From the Xarn Dominion's pod, General Razkar leaned forward, his molten red eyes narrowing. Impartiality, delegate? Convenient words for a species with a history of deception. Elena met his gaze. General, if humans had wanted to harm Orthak, why would we target one of the few delegates willing to listen to us? The attack benefits only those who wish to see us fail. Razkar's sneer didn't falter, but murmurs rippled through the chamber. Before anyone could interject, a soft, melodic voice spoke. The delegate makes a valid point. All eyes turned to Orthak, who had arrived late, their glowing tendrils more subdued than usual but still vibrant. My injuries were superficial, they continued. The weapons used bore superficial resemblance to human technology, but the craftsmanship was inconsistent. This was a crude attempt to deceive. Elena suppressed a sigh of relief. Orthak's statement was unexpected but crucial. The question, Orthak continued, is who stands to gain from such a ruse? Vraxitha's gaze flickered with irritation. That remains to be seen. For now, we move to the next phase of deliberations, evidence of humanity's potential. Back in the embassy's briefing room, Elena's team was gathered, faces drawn with exhaustion and worry. Mira Solin sat with a datapad in hand, scrolling through a trove of files. That was too close, Jace Morin muttered, pacing the length of the room. If Orthak hadn't spoken up, we'd be finished. But they did, Elena said, her tone firm. Now we focus on proving our worth. What do we have? Mira looked up. I've compiled examples of humanity's contributions to galactic society, scientific innovations, disaster relief efforts, cultural exchanges. It's a start, but we need something more compelling. Something that shows the Council what humanity can truly offer. Elena thought for a moment. What about the humanitarian mission on Valus 4? Jace frowned. The one where your team stopped that asteroid impact? It was impressive, but does it outweigh centuries of destruction? It's not about outweighing, Elena replied. It's about showing who we are now. Get me the footage. The next council session was packed. Representatives filled their pods, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Elena stood tall, a faint nervous energy in her limbs. She'd spent hours reviewing every detail of the presentation, knowing this could make or break humanity's case. When her turn came, the chamber dimmed, and a holographic projection filled the space above. The footage began with the asteroid hurtling toward Valus 4, a lush planet home to billions. Panicked voices in the background painted a grim picture of inevitable destruction. Then came the turning point, a coalition of human scientists and engineers devising a plan to alter the asteroid's trajectory. The hologram displayed their frantic efforts, the experimental gravity tethers, the delicate calculations, and finally, the successful deflection. Cheers erupted from the planet's surface as the asteroid veered harmlessly into deep space. Elena spoke as the projection faded. This is humanity. Faced with impossible odds, we choose to act. We don't seek glory or power, we seek to protect life, no matter the cost. Her words hung in the air, the silence heavy with contemplation. From the Mirren pod, their representatives' light brightened to a warm gold. A noble effort. But such examples, while inspiring, must be sustained to prove lasting change. Elena nodded. You're right. One act doesn't erase our past, but it does illuminate our future. Humanity doesn't claim perfection. We claim the will to improve, to learn, and to contribute to this galaxy. After the session, Elena returned to the embassy, her shoulders heavy with fatigue. The day's events had bought humanity time, but the final vote loomed large. She was barely seated when Jace burst into the room, Mira close behind. We found something, Mira said, holding up her datapad. What is it? Elena asked. Proof, Mira said, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and urgency. The weapons used in Orthak's attack? They were traced to a Xarn Dominion supply chain. Elena's eyes widened. You're sure? Jace nodded. Cross-referenced and verified. It's undeniable. Elena leaned back, her mind racing. If we reveal this, it could shift the entire debate. Mira hesitated. Or escalate it. The Xarn are powerful, and accusing them publicly could backfire. Elena stood, her decision firm. We don't have a choice. The truth needs to come out. The next day, the council chamber was filled with an almost electric tension. Elena requested the floor, and the delegates leaned in, their curiosity piqued. She began simply. Yesterday, we discussed the attack on High Emissary Orthak. Today, I present evidence that the weapons used were supplied by the Xarn Dominion. Gasps erupted, and Razkar's molten eyes blazed with fury. Lies! He roared. Elena met his glare unflinchingly. The evidence speaks for itself. Your supply chain records are clear, General. Raxith raised his hand for order. Silence! He turned to Elena. Present your evidence. The chamber dimmed as holographic records appeared, supply manifests, shipment routes, and communications logs, all pointing to the Xarn. Razkar snarled, his claws digging into the edge of his pod. This is a fabrication. Is it? Orthak interjected, their tendrils glowing with calm intensity. The evidence is compelling, General. Perhaps you'd care to explain? Razkar's silence spoke volumes. Elena seized the moment. This isn't just about humanity. It's about manipulation and fear. The Xarn sought to undermine not just my people, but the integrity of this council. We must rise above their schemes and judge humanity fairly. The chamber erupted into a flurry of discussion. Vraxith called for order, but the mood had shifted. Suspicion no longer rested solely on humanity. As Elena stepped down, she felt the first flicker of hope since the trial began. Humanity's fate was still uncertain, but the tide was beginning to turn.